If we could start the meeting with a pledge, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening. We'll start the meeting this evening with item 1.0, special presentation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Poole. This is the last Board of Education meeting for our Assistant Superintendent, Mrs. Debbie Marassa. And, I hope I don't cry. She came to Vernon Public Schools in the fall of 1977 as an English teacher at Rockville High School. She remained there for many years and became the English Language Arts Coordinator, K-12 in the district, before becoming the Assistant Superintendent in 2003. So for 10 years, she's been our Assistant Superintendent. I looked back in her evaluations from way back. In her very, very first evaluation, her supervisor stated that she had high standards, was cooperative, had clear and cogent expression, and a high interest in the teaching profession. She was prompt, dependable, firm but fair, and she showed the promise of becoming an excellent teacher. And I think we all know that she has done far more than become an excellent teacher. She has become an excellent team member and contributor and leader, and has done far more for language arts in the Vernon Public Schools, and certainly more for all of the curriculum in the area. She's, as an assistant superintendent, she represents the district to an outstanding degree. And so I just wanted to thank her publicly and present her with a little bouquet of flowers to brighten her day, and wish her well. Friday is her last day. So, thank you.
Would you like to say something? You have the microphone.
I just want to thank all of you for your tremendous support these many years. I do feel blessed to have had an amazing career in the Vernon Public Schools, and it wouldn't have been without the support of teachers, administrators, all of our staff, and as well as the Board of Education. So thank you so much for that.
Enjoy your retirement. I'm sure you will. All right, we'll move on to item 2.0, which is the consent agenda. I am striking item C from the consent agenda. We are not moving forward with that particular grant. So item C is not part of the consent anymore. And I would entertain a motion. Mr. Person?
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second on the consent? Ms. Bush?
Second.
Okay, a motion and a second. Do I have any discussion on the consent agenda? Ms. Golich?
I'd like to pull item G, please.
Item G. Okay. And is there anybody else who wishes to discuss? Okay. Seeing none, we're going to take a vote on everything but C, which has been deleted, and G, which has been pulled by Ms. Golich. By show of hands, all in favor? And that's unanimous. So Ms. Golich, you have the floor on item G.
This is policy 5131.81. If you could go to the third paragraph, please. I'd like to strike the two sentences, or one sentence in the parenthesis at the end of the paragraph, and end that with under the supervision of the district. So I move the policy minus the information in the parenthesis.
So the vote, Mr. Kemp, that's a second. Okay, I have a motion and a second to move the policy with the deletion of the information in the brackets. And is there any discussion on that motion? Ms. Arnold?
Just rationale here.
I'm not sure what it means. I don't believe we discussed this in our policy committee. I think that came out of code language. I don't remember us talking about it, and I'm fairly literate and I don't get it, so I'd like to take it out.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, I'm going to call that motion to a vote, and that is to approve with that omission, and all in favor? And that's unanimous. Right. Moving on, item 3.0, Secretary's report. 3.1, opportunity for the Board of Education to add or delete agenda items is Mrs. Fisher.
I move that we add agenda item 7.8A, which is a resolution for authorization for superintendent's signature for a grant award.
7.8A grant award, and that is in your blue folders this evening if you have not seen that. And a second, Mr. Purcell?
Second.
A motion and a second. Is there any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote by show of hands. All in favor of adding 7.8A? And that's unanimous. And is there anything else that anybody wishes to add or delete from the agenda items this evening? Seeing none, we'll move on. We don't have a student representative this evening. I'm sure they're enjoying their first day of vacation, so we'll move into item 4.0, community forum. This is the opportunity for comments on agenda items, potential future agenda items, or general information to be provided to the board from citizens and community organizations. Is there anybody who wishes to speak to the board this evening? Please come forward, state your name and address for the record, and if you just sign your name and address on that pad when you're done, that'd be great.
Good evening, my name is Lisa Perry, 61 Orchard Street in Rockville. And I'd like to speak with you tonight regarding the impending change in the electronics policy. Forgive me for reading, but no short stories with me, so. I'm concerned about the proposed changes to the electronics devices policy. Not being part of the policy committee's discussions, but seeing the proposed changes and fully understanding the idea behind bringing your own device, enhancing our students at the high schools access to technology, I'm still very concerned about a policy that gives broad, unmonitored, unlimited access to technology, which in my opinion as a parent is what the children currently have. If we had at the high school a policy that existed that I feel was enforced and under control, I would feel good about this addition to the policy. However, I feel like we're taking something that is kind of already abused and almost giving permission for children to continue to abuse it. As a parent, I see a lot of traffic on social media, not only by students that my children are friends with on social media, but frankly, and much to my disgust, faculty and staff. And I feel like there's no way that we can monitor or control this by changing the policy to encourage children to be bringing these electronics to school. And so I realize this kind of opens a broader issue here, which is control and discipline at the high school. I just would be, I would like to have some discussion going on about how children's use is going to be monitored and frankly how you're going to monitor your faculty's use of these electronics in a way that it actually does enhance our students' academic opportunities rather than detract from them. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who wishes to speak this evening at committee forum? Please come forward, state your name and address for the record, and if you'd also sign the clipboard if you're done.
My name is Catherine Cutting, and I live on 9 New Court. I'm a senior basketball player at Rockville High School. I'm speaking on behalf of my varsity coach, Israel Kaban. I'm here to request that the Board of Education considers adding the position of a girls freshman coach back into the budget. This position was removed a few years back as there weren't enough girls to field a team. This year's group of incoming freshmen includes girls that played on the VCMS team, a travel team, an AAU team, and 3 Vernon Rec teams last season. As a current student athlete of RHS, I value the positive values of school sports and would like to see the program grow in the coming years. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who wishes to speak this evening at the community forum? Seeing no more hands, we will move on to our next agenda. Item 5.0, personnel. Yes. I will give you
We do have a new employee that I would like to introduce during community forum. I wasn't sure whether he was coming this evening or not. Mr. Picaro has been successful in, well, we can't say replacing because I don't think you ever replace Monica Pacheco. But we do have a new food service director who is still doing paperwork, will be coming on shortly. His name is Christopher Objes, and he has a background in culinary arts and food service management. He's worked for Chartwells at Eastern Connecticut State University. He's worked in Holyoke. He's worked for Aramark in New Haven, so for the private concerns. So he certainly knows that. Recently, he's appeared on the Food Network Chopped as a contestant and did very well there. He has experience in operations, both through Aramark and through Chartwells. And so I would just like to introduce him, if I could. Mr. Objes, where are you? There he is, right here.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Any questions for him? It's nice, his background in culinary adds to the flavor of the position.
First off, welcome.
Thank you very much. I'm looking forward to the opportunity to come on board here and really get involved again in school food service. It's something that I've done over the past several years, and with some recent changes in myself as far as my food philosophy and things that I've gone through personally with myself and my family, I think this will be an excellent platform for me to really work to help improve food in the schools and really work with kids again to help them make better food choices and healthier food choices and learn the benefits of healthy eating and exercise. I think it's a great opportunity for me, and I hope I'll meet all your expectations that you have for the food services going forward.
Does anybody have any questions? Ms. Sarno.
Will you spell your name?
It's spelled A, V as in Victor, T, G, E, S. It's pronounced Objes, the T is silent.
Thank you.
No problem.
Well, Christopher, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Ball.
All right, now we'll move on to item 5.0, personnel. Item 5.1, leave of absence request. Dr. Conway. 5.1.
Thank you very much, Mr. Houle. We have 2 teachers, if I could speak about them together. I'll speak a little separately as well. 2 teachers who have requested brief leaves of absence in the fall of 2013 in the school year. The first one is Tara Schmidt, who is our technology teacher in the middle school. Both teachers are from the middle school. And she's requesting 10-week unpaid leave starting about the 3rd week of school, so about September 16th, and coming back the Monday after Thanksgiving. So she would miss, the students do exploratories in 6-week blocks. And so she would miss the second half of this first 6-week block, all of the second, and the beginning of the third, if I count correctly. She is looking to pursue a certificate program, could lead towards a doctorate as well in computer science. The problem with both of these requests is they truly will benefit us tremendously. The other request is from Jessica Ashton, who is a world language teacher, and she had made arrangements to go to school this fall because we had only offered her a 1-year position, and the position has continued on. The teacher she replaced did not come back, and so She is requesting to still go to that school in Madrid, Spain. And of course, that will ground her and bring her wonderful things back. So both the administration of the school and I believe that these are wonderful things that would benefit our students, and yet at the same time, these are probably the two most difficult areas to leave a hole in during the school year and bring a sub into. It would be rare that we would get a world language sub or a person who would be a technology sub. So my recommendation for the students we have in our incoming classes is to deny the request, but I do that regretfully.
Board members, there is a,
And Mrs. Schmidt is here, and I don't think Mrs. Ashton. Mrs. Ashton is also here.
we have item 5.1A, which is regarding Mrs. Schmidt first. Are there questions, discussions, or does anybody wish to make a motion? Motion? Yeah. Mr. Kemp?
Well, obviously, nobody wants to make the motion because it seems like a very legitimate request in both instances, but the superintendent has made a determination regarding the value of the person being with us in contrast to not being with us, and that's really the logic, I guess, behind the movement to deny, which I'll make that a motion to deny the request of 5.1A.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to deny based on the information provided this evening. Mr. Nicholson?
Second.
Motion to deny and the second. Does anybody wish to speak to the motion? Ms. Arnold?
Can I assume, Dr. Conway, that any accommodating you could do within the system, juggling, doubling, other personnel has already been looked into?
Right,
And there really is nothing that you can do?
There aren't a stable of technology teachers in the district that can share around, because they all obviously have full-time jobs. It would have to be someone coming in from the outside to do this. And obviously, these are two teachers who are very difficult to replace as well, because they're very good teachers. This is very difficult. It is nothing I'm doing, I'm recommending lightheartedly, because and what they will learn while they are out and bring back to the classroom will serve us many times over.
Ms. Fisher?
Can I ask Mrs. Schmidt a question? Is there an opportunity to pursue this
Please come forward to me.
I'm sorry. Is there an opportunity to pursue this certification at another time?
Yeah, there is. The reason I asked for the 10 weeks specifically is this is a new program. It's new from Post, and it's an accelerated program. So in essence, with this 2 weeks, or 10 weeks, what it allows me to do is get, believe it or not, 48 weeks of education into that time slot. Of course, the first 3 weeks in September I would be here, but by the mid-year point, I would have obtained 48 weeks of education. My feeling on it was that it's important only because if you're familiar with what we've been doing in computer ed, we've expanded, we have the e-learning lab, and this is solely geared around distance learning, the online learning. So I thought it was important to kind of accelerate it. But any of you know me, I'm pretty determined. I'll find a way to get it. I just think it's in our best interest to be ahead of the game.
But you can take these courses at a different time if you...
They're limited right now because it's such a new program. Like I would only be able to take these ones that I needed this fall, so it would put me off until I can't really speak for the school. I don't know what direction they're going to go in that, but I know it would delay it at least a year and a half for me to gain the full certification. This is like a unique fall. And again, Dr. Conway's been very supportive, but it's been a last minute. They came up with this. They thought this was a great opportunity. I'll get it one way or the other, but I feel very strongly it's more beneficial in the long run for the students to have me up and running with this by hopefully, I would say, mid-December.
Thank you.
Ms. Bush?
Is it possible to put a long-term sub that has some of the skill level that would be able to be, keep the students on track with their education?
We have not been successful in finding substitute technology teachers or world language teachers, but Mrs. Schmidt would know better than I about who has taken her place when she's been out occasionally.
Well, the woman who takes my place when I'm out, she is not interested in a long term. But my department head is actually here, Mr. Martucci.
he is confident there's a couple candidates that he would feel okay with being in that place. And again, I know no one really knows me, but a handful of you, but I'm very controlling when it comes to my class. Like I have my plans designed out. I may be gone in physical, but I will be there, you know, I will be there emailing, I will be stopping in, I will be surprising. I wouldn't ask if I didn't think I could do that. I spent way too much time in the last 2 years, and again, this is an offshoot of Post University, to come up with that, work with Mr. Griffin, get over $100,000 in grant money for this. To me, it's like the final process of this lab, although technology is not final, but this would be like the natural progression of this. I would make it work. I would be confident, because if it wouldn't, I guess I would ask if I could come back earlier if it wasn't working out. But I would find a way. My department head is supportive, my principal is supportive, but honestly, I respect whatever, decision is made.
Other questions or Ms. Goldrich?
I'm sorry, you just said that your principal is supportive of the meeting?
Yes. I mean, obviously, it's nice to hear no one wants them to leave, but I went to them first. I tried to go in the proper order. I wouldn't put something out there like this if I wasn't confident that I could pull it off.
Ms. Sarn?
Obviously, there's a conflict between what your department head and principals think they can do to fill your shoes and the superintendent's determination about that. Can you be a little more specific?
I don't really know if it's a conflict. To be honest, when I first met with Dr. Conway, she was very honest with me that that would be her first concern and really her only concern. So I don't even know, even though everyone's supportive, it's nice to know that I don't think anyone thinks I can be fully replaced. So I don't know if there's necessarily a conflict. I think as superintendent, she's acted in the best interest that this is the best person for in that position. But I think, and I can't speak for her, but I think that anyone who knows me, whatever the best possible solution could be, if I was to leave, that would be what would happen in there. So I don't think that there's a conflict. I think they're confident, maybe they work with me a little more day to day, but again, I understand, concerns.
Did you want to name this?
Yes, I would. Administration, as I am, are completely supportive of what she wants to do, what Ms. Schmidt wants to do, but they are also concerned that they have no one to put in that seat. That is their concern as well.
So maybe I chose the wrong word. I apologize for conflict. I really meant that there's everybody is in agreement that there is nobody in the wings waiting to take her place.
Well, unless Mr. Martucci apparently has some people outside the district that we do not know about.
Actually, we have, at the high school now, we've had, unplanned long-term leaves. And this one being planned will allow us, to work over the summer. And there is one candidate who is looking for a full-time job, who I think would be very, a good candidate. She's done a lot of long-term subbing in our building unexpectedly. She's filling in currently. She was filling in one of the vocational areas. So I think with the proper person, we can make this work, especially with Terry, willing to work over the summer. And, she'll be there the first 3 weeks of the school year to work with them. And on the rotation, I think we could, find a proper fit that, in the long term, I think it will benefit the kids. In the short term, absolutely, it's going to be hard to replace Terry, but I think we do have unplanned leaves. I mean, I became department head in the department 7 or 8 years ago because the department head wasn't there for the whole year. And it kept getting delayed, and I just took it over and I did it. So it's not uncommon to have these leaves. This one we can at least prepare better for.
Well, there's no doubt that there's a benefit to Terry doing this. You don't think the students will pay a price for the 10 weeks that you're gone?
Well, I will be with all of them, and I think one group, because I have 2 different sets of rotation, one on a 5 and one on a 10 week. One age group will see me at the beginning of one, and then the second rotation of that will see me at the end. One group will miss me, but that would be the 6th grade group, which I will actually have again in 7th grade. And hopefully the way their schedule is set up, they have a flex, so they are still accessible to the lab. So hopefully my skill set would improve enough, and this that I would be able to bring forward with them is they would be able to use the e-learning lab, and I'd be able to work with them throughout the year. So maybe not in that strict rotation that I have them every day, but they definitely could benefit me still and benefit from me next year still. So, I mean, I'm not going to say it's going to be the same, but I feel comfortable that, when I've had to go on when I've done professional days, when I did conferences and stuff, I'm very detailed in what I leave, and I feel confident that Mr. Martucci will help oversee it. I feel confident my colleague will help. I wouldn't do it if I didn't feel confident in it.
Yeah, again, I think the question is where do the kids stand? Is, again, I'm sure that's where administration is looking at it and understanding, you know, you're doing things to elevate your education to be able to help out a kid's
Right.
future, but it's what happens to
Right.
those kids this year, that during that 10-week period. We don't want to lose anybody because
I
you know,
understand.
of a long-term sub. Board, any other questions? We do have a motion on the floor currently to deny the request. There's no other discussion or debate. I will bring that motion to a vote. And, Mr. Kemp.
This point of order. I don't know how people are going to vote because this is, you know, there's legitimate points all around. Should this motion fail, what is the process should it fail? In other words, if the motion to deny does not happen, then what?
I would say we could entertain a alternative motion if one should still be made. Or we could ask the superintendent to go back and do something totally different. I mean, that's we have to make a decision. And if we decide not to deny the request, if that vote fails, then we have to, you know, decide, are we going to approve the request and authorize the superintendent to take whatever action she needs to do. Because if we don't, and she's asking for our say, it's our policy, we just, if you look at our board policy, I think it was one of those policies that was in the package this evening. She's operating based on our policy as well. So it's up to the board to make a statement. Any other discussion or dialogue? Seeing none, I will call the motion to a vote by a show of hands. All in favor? And those opposed? I show 5 opposed. The motion will fail. And did you get the? Okay, good. I just want to make sure. Ms. Arnold.
I'd like to move to approve the request for unpaid leave for Terry Schmidt for 10 weeks beginning August 26th. It's not right, is it?
No,
September 16th.
September 16th, sorry.
Okay, I have a motion, Mrs. Bush.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the request. Is there any discussion, Mr. Kemp?
Yes, I'd like to know what exactly will be the plan then, since you offered it up. What is your choice? What are you going to do?
You mean as far as the
No, I'm asking,
Oh,
I'm
Mr.
sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm asking the
Well, I
department.
do have the person's name. I talked to her on Thursday, and I would let her know that this was a possibility, that I would be in contact with her this week and start setting up. She hasn't been successful looking for a full-time position, so it was something she was very interested in. And I honestly, I would not recommend her if I didn't think she was capable of it. She has actually subbed in our department quite frequently and does a very nice job. She's actually subbed from me. And so I will be in contact with her.
And I would assume that they'll have a conversation with the superintendent as well. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, I'm going to call a new motion to approve to a vote by a show of hands. All in favor? And those opposed? I show 1 opposed. That motion does carry.
Thank you.
Thank you. And the second request, item 5.1B, is for Ms. Ashton. And this is for the world language position. I believe Ms. Ashton's here as well.
Yes, and her supervisor, Mrs. Fitzgerald, is also here, if you would like to speak with them as well.
If they would like to come to the table, I'm sure folks may have questions here as well.
This is a similar situation. Ms. Ashton will benefit greatly, and so will our students from her trip to Spain. It is in the middle of the fall, however, beginning of October to beginning of December. I think it's important to note that Ms. Ashton did make these plans when she was only offered a one-year position. So she assumed it would be a one-year position, a leave of absence replacement, and that, so she didn't make these just assuming she could get the time. So she discovered at the end of this year, when she was offered the position, that she had a conflict. So that's why she is coming forward right now. Again, this would certainly support our students, but this is an area, it was very difficult to find Ms. Ashton to take that job last year, especially given that it was only a one-year position. We were fortunate, and I don't know if Mrs. Fischer-Taker has anything to add to that.
I know Jessica wanted to share some details with the board as well. As soon as I heard that Jessica had some plans, to go forward with her opportunity, which I think is absolutely tremendous. We always try to get our teachers and encourage them greatly to travel and to make sure they hone themselves with the culture and the language of which they teach. So from that standpoint, I totally support her idea to get this done. So as soon as she said it, that this is something that's coming up, I have put out some calls to our former members of the department who are retired, who might be looking to do a short stint. I mean, if I were to tell them to come back for the whole year, I think they would flatly deny that. But I know that knowing that there's an end in sight, but she has some ideas that she shared with me about how she would go about planning for this.
Good evening. So a couple of things that I was thinking, in the letter that I wrote to Dr. Conway, I mentioned that I would be more than willing to provide lesson plans as well as assessments for the students in my absence. With technology, I would be able to set up Skype meetings kind of with my classes as well, and I would be able to share with them different cultural things that I'm learning while I'm there. Or maybe if the substitute is having difficulty with a certain topic, I could certainly create a video lesson and send it in and do that as well. But I completely understand and respect Dr. Conway's recommendation. I do understand that it is difficult to find world language teachers. But I do believe this really would benefit not only just my students, but the district as well, having a teacher who is out in her field for a short period of time. So I would be able to establish procedures and all of that in the beginning of the year with my students in the end of August through September, and then I would be back before Christmas as well to finish out the year with them. It would be about 40 school days, so 8 weeks. I have been, as a part of the World Language Leadership Team as well, I've been helping write curriculum for the district as well, for world language.
Thank you. Board members, there is a suggested motion, but I would entertain a motion, and then we'd open up for dialogue and discussion. Ms. Bush?
I'd like to make a motion that the Vernon Board of Education accept the request of unpaid leave of absence for Jessica Ashton from October 9th, 2013 through December 6th, 2015.
So there's a motion to accept the request. Is there a second on that motion? Ms. Gold? A motion to accept and a second by Ms. Goldich. Is there any discussion or questions? Ms. Sarno?
Jessica, your explanation didn't include too much about schooling. What will you be doing?
Okay, well, I would be attending a school with a nonprofit organization in Madrid called Youth with a Mission. And I would be specifically learning in Spanish things about social justice and injustice, as well as, including human trafficking and things like that. And certainly learning about different social issues, I could certainly bring that back and work with my students, with the students that we have here in Vernon. And while it is not specifically a grammar learning school for Spanish. The entire thing would be in Spanish, and I would certainly be honing my skills and learning a lot and becoming even more fluent than I am.
Ms. Goldich?
You mentioned being able to Skype into your class from time to time. Can you give an estimate of how much time you think you would be able to spend per week in the classroom here electronically?
Sure. I believe I would be able to do that at least once a week. Because it would be a school that I am attending, I would not be able to do a full day, like each block on one day, but I could certainly, as I'm in communication with the substitute teacher, I would be able to figure things out with her about when a best time each week for each block would be, that I would be able to contact my students. And if that did not work, I have the capacity and the ability to record, make a video recording and post it online for my students as well, that the substitute could use in the classroom.
And what is the time difference between here and here?
It's 6 hours, so around 2 o'clock, which is when the siesta starts, so from 2 to 5. It's everything in Spain closes down. I would not have classes. I would have a chance to eat lunch and do personal things. That means it would be 8 a.m. here, and as I believe the schedule works for next year, I would be teaching classes in the morning. And then in Spain, you stay up late because it's really hot there, so as well I would be able to be up later in the evening and be able to Skype with my students after their lunchtime, so around 1 o'clock, that would be 1 o'clock here, I would be able to as well work with them.
Mr. Kim?
It's a technical question about medical insurance. The prior letter did specifically address that in the sense that, as I understand it, the employee would pay for the insurance on an ongoing basis in order to keep it current. This letter does not address the insurance piece, which I would like to understand before we vote.
Yes, it's an unpaid leave. Both of them would be unpaid leaves of absence, and I would imagine they would want to continue their insurance, so they would be
Well,
paying
the
that
first
while they
letter
were
says
gone.
that.
Yeah.
This letter is silent on the subject, so I'd like to hear now what the commitment is.
I would be willing to write another letter including that, but that is something that I would certainly look into. I would not expect for the district to be paying for health insurance in my absence.
Ms. Bush?
Through you, Mr. Chair, Ms. Whittaker, you feel confident you'd be able to find a substitute that would be able to handle the Spanish classes?
As I mentioned, we've already started to look into that. I think Jessica gave you the impression that, she had received a notification from Dr. Conway, but, Dr. Conway had indicated that it would be the board's decision. So based on that, we made some calls, and, it's always a challenge, but it's one that we love because we always come up with a person who would do the job.
Thank you.
Mr. Nicholson?
If you weren't to go the time you planned, do you have the ability to go at another time? Can you schedule something?
No, this school is specifically from in October to the beginning of December, unfortunately.
Any other questions? Ms. Goldich?
It sounds like the topic that you will be studying is human rights.
Yes.
Have you made any plans for when you come back to not only use what you learned in the Spanish classes, but in other sociology classes or something else that might apply to that subject area?
Well, certainly I think it would help me understand and better relate to some of our students here in Vernon as well. There are some students that have very difficult and tough situations that they go through on a daily basis, and learning about different scenarios and human rights issues, I would be able to work with them as their teacher and help them and understand them more.
And I would certainly encourage, with the team set up at Vernon Center Middle School, I would certainly encourage her to work with her team, to work with social studies teachers or writing to share information.
Is there any other dialogue or questions? Seeing none, we have a motion on the floor to accept or to approve the leave of absence, and a second. I'm going to call that motion to a vote by a show of hands. All in favor? And those opposed? Motion passes, one opposed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Moving on to item 6.0, curriculum. Item 6.1, spring assessment data. Dr. Conway or
Thank you. Well, we would invite Mr. Gussie and Mr. Osmond to the presentation table. They have our universal screening data from the spring. I think a few other data points as well to share, it appears. And I'll turn this over to Mrs. Morasso. If you have any other introduction.
This year, we've been working very hard on populating our VPS assessment blueprint. That is the document that includes the administration scoring and data entry of the assessments that we use to guide both curriculum development and to monitor the risk status of students in reading, language arts, and mathematics. In the spring, actually in the winter, we shared with the board some information regarding the status of that information, and Justin and Chris are here this evening to share the results of some of the spring assessments.
So included in your board packet tonight for reading, you'll see all the universal screening data, pulled it aggregated by grade level. So you see all grade level data. Some of those universal screens are specific to a grade level. I know you've seen these assessments before, and the results are probably very familiar with those. I also included the cut scores by the time of year. So for instance, cut scores change throughout the year because the intention of those universal screens is to identify students for which we really ought to provide some type of intervention. So when I look at the Maze data at the high school, which is a reading comprehension measure, we really ought to change those cut scores, and are looking to do that for next year to identify more. We want more students at medium risk and more students at high risk, so that it's a more useful tool to identify students that need support. Overall, though, I was pleased with what I saw compared to the past couple of years. Our students seem to be improving at an increasing rate, positive rate. So I'm not going to harp on the universal screening data too much. If you'd like to ask questions, I'll actually do that. When I'm finished, I just do want to draw your attention though to the pie graphs that are also included. And the Foundations of Reading assessment is something that we, the reading department at the elementary level and myself developed throughout the school year. When we talk about Common Core State Standards, we have the general Common Core State Standards, but there's a kind of an addendum that are the reading foundational standards that apply really K through 5, but the bulk of them are grouped towards the early elementary levels. And we talk about how important it is to ensure that students are reading on grade level by 3rd grade. And I mean, I'm sure you've heard this before, and how important that is to determine their success later on in schooling and life. In our current curriculum, the language arts curriculum, as it stands, those foundational reading standards for print concepts, phonological awareness, phonics, fluency weren't included because they're foundational standards. The expectation from the State Department is that they would just be addressed automatically. I wasn't certain that that was happening to the extent that it really needs to for some of our earliest emerging readers. So we, and Judy Latoni started to lay the groundwork for this, but we really went through and finalized this Foundations of Reading assessment to address Standard 1 of Reading Foundations, which is print concepts, understanding that you open a book, unless it's in English, but from left to right, that you read from left to right, from top to bottom, capital letters, these types of things, print concepts. So ideally we have kids coming into kindergarten having mastered some of those concepts, but obviously if they haven't, we need to address them to make sure that they can understand what how print functions in English so that they can start to understand what they read, start teaching immediately. Standard 2 is phonological awareness in the Common Core. That's understanding and differentiating between sounds that you hear. So really not until most students are about 12 years old, does their reading comprehension come up to the same level as their oral comprehension. So students understand what they hear much better than they understand what they read, the average kid, until they're almost in middle school. So it's really important that they are hearing words and hearing sounds and can differentiate between similar sounds, so that when they're looking at the page, it's an important determinant factor in how well they can learn to read. Okay, and so that's the second graph. And then so those two assessments, foundational assessments, are actually kindergarten and first grade students. Most of the print concepts is kindergarten. There are several phonological standards for first grade as well. When we get to the phonics standard, which is standard 3 on that assessment, we use that assessment with kindergarten, first, and second grade students. So phonics is what you see on the page, for instance, segmenting syllables, so statement, or sort of, so the student has to look at that and tell the teacher how many syllables, segmented word chunks. Phonological awareness, they're just hearing what the teacher says. For instance, cap, what are the sounds in cap? And the student has to tell the teacher what the different phonemes are, so cap. And this data is just aggregated for the entire standard, but there are subsets of each standard. So there are several phonological standards, or substandards for standard 2. That data is collected at the school level, and it's going to follow the student from kindergarten to first grade to second grade to third grade if it needs to, so that the teachers next year will have each student's data at the very beginning of the school year. So they'll know that, for instance, Chris is a kid in the class that he has mastered these aspects of phonological awareness, but it's really important for me as his teacher to address these aspects that he has not. So although these standards don't exist officially in our curriculum, the goal is that this assessment, which we're going to give 3 times throughout the school year, will drive teachers to ensure that they are addressing all aspects of reading foundations. I just wanted to share. Again, this is the first time, this is kind of draft, what actually constitutes mastery or developing. There was a lot of discussion around that. We referred to some other assessments. We used the past almost verbatim, which is a very well researched assessment for most of the phonological awareness tests in first grade. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to address them.
Folks, do you have any questions for Mr. Gussie on the reading portions? Mrs. Bush?
I noticed a big difference from kindergarten, first grade into the second grade with the reading foundations. Can you give a little explanation on that, on the pie charts? We're only saying
yes.
78% in kindergarten. We have at Mastery, we have 69% in first grade, and then we drop down to only 36% in the second grade.
Yep. So the second grade was heavily weighted on, well, that's standard 3, which is phonics, and that's something that, quite frankly, I think we just need to do a better job of teaching. But many of our teachers, there is some of that in some phonics instruction that's built into the Treasures program that most teachers are using for their phonics scope and sequence. But that program doesn't address all of the components of the phonics standard in the Common Core, but this assessment does. So several teachers emailed me and said things like, gosh, you know, I wish we had this assessment earlier in the school year so that I understood, you know, what exactly I was supposed to be teaching my students. So that was, for instance, one of the issues that they had was segmenting syllables, and it's just not something that students were accustomed to do. Now, if you have a second grader that's a relatively fluent reader already, you don't want to spend too much amount of time on that, but statement is a long word for most second graders. It's not a sight word. It's not something that they see all the time. You might not hear that word in their everyday conversation. And when they saw that on the page, many students couldn't turn that into those the two syllables. So the teachers recognize that, and hopefully that will be better next year.
Mr. Kemp?
Laura, I'd like to ask you a question. You had the grade one, the purple part of the pie chart, and then your conclusion was the purple part of the second grade being lower, that they somehow didn't do as well. So, but the reverse would be a question of mine. In first grade, why do we assume that that's an accurate reflection of their real skill sets leaving first grade? Might not second grade be a more accurate reflection of where they really are, and the first grade results overstated? It could be one or the other. I just don't know which to believe. It's such a big change.
But these are two different, they're measuring different standards. What Mr. Gussie said, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, is these are three different standards. There's a standard that you measured in kindergarten, a standard that you measured in first grade, and then a different standard measured in second grade. Is that correct?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, that's correct. We actually assessed each, print concepts, which is the first standard, and phonological awareness, which is the second standard, were addressed in kindergarten and first grade. Phonics, which is the third standard, that's on the page, we assessed for kindergarten, first, and second graders. Not all that data was shared. I'm sorry, that's not in the board packet.
So
It could be
these
made- it
charts,
could be made available.
yeah, these charts are not all comparable apples to apples, is what you basically were saying to us.
No, they're not.
Is that, Mr. Kemp, is that?
Well, okay, I mean, I accept that, except that Mr. Gussie said that they hope to do better in second grade, as if to say you were comparing them. So,
Through you, Mr. Chair, again, we have about 50, over 60-some% of our students who didn't master the phonics standards. That's problematic.
Yeah, so, thank you. So he's just illustrating one point for us in that particular comparison, it sounds. And I just want to make sure we're all clear. I'm going to acknowledge Ms. Morasso, and then I'll acknowledge Ms. Sarn.
Thank you, Mr. Roll. One of the goals of populating our assessment blueprint is that these assessments serve to their predictive value when we take a look at student performance on our national assessments or on the high stakes assessments. So we're building many of these assessments on our own, and while we work to try to ensure validity and reliability, we're kind of learning a lot through them as we go and as we administer them. The learning is as great for us as it is for our students. So Justin mentioned before, the cut scores may need to be adjusted. So we're always looking, ultimately, when this is a well-oiled machine, these assessments will be able to predict how our students are going to score and how they will achieve on the high stakes test. We're not there yet, but we're building it. And these are the great conversations that we're having. These are the great questions that teachers are asking each other. Wow, I wish I had this now. I would have done things differently. That's what we're working toward. Again, ultimately, the desire here is to ensure that these tests have predictive value so that we can ensure that students are meeting the high academic standards that will be required of them.
And I would say it's probably safe to assume that the data that you're using is much thicker than what we actually got. We only got a small sampling of the data. Okay. Ms. Arndt.
I understand that these educational concepts are an experiment. They are all the time, and they're just evolving, and you try and it works or it doesn't work and you try something else. Not just at Vernon's level, but the state and national as well, that it's all an experiment. I heard you say something, Justin, that concerns me about staff. Staff didn't know that what they should be addressing. That concerns me, unless I heard you incorrectly. And although I understand that there's a lot of information missing and the pie charts are one moment in time based on one skill at a grade level, that's it. It doesn't make me feel like we're going to achieve that goal of everybody reading on level at grade 3, because there's so many deficiencies, and there seem to be holes in what staff is offering classroom to classroom. No, gaps, differences in what staff is offering classroom to classroom. Do you expect that students will be, all students by grade 3 will be reading on grade level?
I think through decreasing the variability from classroom to classroom over the next year or two, we're going to see many, many more students reading on grade level by the end of grade 3.
Consistency classroom to classroom in teaching is what you're talking about.
Yes.
Ms. Marassa?
I would just also want to point out that the shifts or the gaps that Ms. Arndt is addressing are really the learnings that come out of the implementation of the Common Core state standards. There are significant shifts in the way we need to teach and the way students need to learn. And we're finding those things out now as we implement new curriculum and as we administer these assessments. So it's a work in progress, so to speak.
Thank you. Ms. Fisher?
I just have a question about the cut scores. Could you explain what these numbers symbolize?
Sure. Do you have a particular assessment in mind?
Well, let's say on the first page, the kindergarten letter sound things and high risk 0 to 2. Is that 0 to 2 students? What does that number mean?
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, do you mind if I just address something Ms. Arndt mentioned as well? I just want to say about, as far as reading instruction goes, it's not very experimental anymore. The jury's kind of no longer out about what works. We do know to a large extent how to teach reading. We just need to make sure that we're doing that appropriately. Thank you. So letter sound fluency. In the fall, a kindergarten student would be high risk or identified as at high risk and in need of some serious intervention if they can only appropriately identify 0, 1, or 2 letters and the sounds that those letters can make.
All right, so that's just word identification then would be if they can identify 60 or more words in the spring or something. Is that what those numbers mean?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? That's over. Yeah, I agree.
I thought we were all set. Thanks. So, yeah, and that's, someone brought up a good point that I want to make as well, is that what we're looking at tonight, again, is one piece of data. We have, a lot of other data, or looking at it more in depth. So basically what I've given you for tonight is really just a summary of universal screening data for this year. And one of the points, too, that I want to make about universal screening data to keep in mind is the idea behind universal screens, as it's related to RTI or SRBI, is really to, it's based on the medical model. So these screens are not diagnostic. They're very quick screens. The math ones, the longest math test is 6 minutes long. And many of them, if you look at the K in one, the quantity discrimination and number identification, are really a minute. So the purpose behind these is to look at students and determine where they are as far as a risk level. But it's not the be-all and end-all. You want to take that data, if a student's scoring in that high risk, and then look at other data points to really see or determine if that student is at high risk. So in other words, if you went to the doctor and your blood pressure was high or your pulse was fast, they wouldn't automatically send you to the emergency room and have a cardiologist cut you open or whatever. They would look at other data points. And so in that sense, I want you to keep that in mind when you're looking at universal screening data. And again, we're hoping, as Debbie was saying earlier, to continue to build the assessment blueprint. I know we're constantly working on. We revised our math benchmarks for elementary last year, and already we're really looking at it to make sure that they're aligned with the Common Core and Smarter Balance, because we recognize that even over that year, they're not at the same level of rigor that those questions are going to be. Now that Smarter Balance is really starting to release items, you can actually go on and take a practice test for grade 3 or grade 4, grade 5 or 6. So you can really see what those items are going to look like and what that item bank is going to be. So again, that's just one data point. So you look at these, and again, one of the things I've done over the last few years, at least where I'm able to, with not necessarily with the K1 and 2, but with grades 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 and 8, is really look and try and, once we get CMT data from this, is really look at a correlation and look at the correlation data and R value between those and see how well, how strongly these are predictors of how students will perform. Some of them are very good and others not so good. So I'm working on that, and then, as Debbie was saying before, is adjusting cut scores from there. So we're looking, when you see, again, those graphs from fall to spring, some of them, we're looking at student growth as well. So you have to realize that each of those screens is really the same screen. So for example, the computation and the concepts and applications, there's 30 different versions of those that all test the same thing. So we'll take one in the fall and one in the spring. So we're looking, so just to give you an example, I'll just for your ease, is really looking at the first page for number identification for kindergarten. So if you look at the percentage of students at high risk actually increased. However, so you do want to look at that, but in the fall screening, 48 students were unscorable or scored a 0 in the fall. So coming into kindergarten, 48 of those students couldn't identify numbers. In the spring, let me look and make sure I'm looking at the right one. There was 3 students who still could not. So that's a big concern when I look at those students. In the fall, 16 students had a score of 25 or over. So in other words, in 1 minute could identify 25 numbers from 0 to 100. And in the spring, 139 students could score 25 or above. So I just want you to keep that in mind as we're looking. So as I look at these two, if I don't see a lot of growth in there, I want to try and do a comparison of how students, what are we seeing for student growth. And the other piece that you don't have as well, so if I'm going back into some of this data, which I believe our first year for the majority of these screens was 2009 and 2010, we have many more students now who are scoring at low risk than at high risk. So we're taking all this data and trying to look at it and make changes. And again, one of the things, as you can see if you turn to the second and third page, students perform relatively well in quantity discrimination in grade 1, where they have to choose between 2 numbers, which is the greater of the 2. And then computation is lower. However, from the fall, we have like 71% of the kids identified as high risk. And then by the spring, 23%. So again, something to look at there is, previously we have not done really computation in kindergarten, but now Common Core requires that kindergartners learn addition and subtraction of 5. So this year in kindergarten, we've really started with that program, really doing number talk. So I would expect to see a difference next year with those students. Some of the other things that we've read is really for K1, we almost don't want to do screeners until almost October, November, until kids get into the thing. So I would look to see, based on some programmatic changes, an increase in the number of students at low risk in computation. So those are just some of the things, and again, I'll continue to look at the screening data along with some of our other data as well.
Does anybody have any questions for Ms. Fine? Mr. Kim?
In almost every case, I would expect to see the orange bar chart high in the fall and preferably lower at the end of the year. Conversely, the red bar chart, low risk students as high as possible when you finish the year. And generally, as I turn these pages quickly, that's what I see.
Yeah, and again, thanks, and I agree too, and there's some cases where we don't necessarily see that, and so that's places as well where I want to look deeper as far as what that might be.
Well, in particular, the last two charts. They don't tell me what grade they are. But as you can see, the last two, the orange.
Yeah, and
What's the label at the top, Mr.?
And there's actually, I'll address that too, because there's actually one, there's a math and algebra foundations that is missing, and that would be the grade 8. So algebra foundations is students in algebra. So this is students in algebra at the high school. And so that's something I want to look at as well, and really go through and do an item analysis with that. In discussing it with teachers at the high school, one of the things on algebra foundations is what we're tending to see is that students do well on certain parts throughout the year, but don't seem to retain that throughout. So I'm trying to look and see if that's clear.
Okay, so maybe the orange bar doesn't get better, but in both cases here, the orange bar goes up a lot. So how do you end up with far more kids at high risk than you started with at the end of the year by a lot?
So and again, that question, as you were saying, if you think back to what I was saying earlier, is those cut scores continue to go up. So in other words, we're trying to define what the right scores are for those as far as where those kids fall. So in other words, it's the same test each time, Dave. So, but the score as far as where you are, as far as high risk, medium risk, low risk changes. That continues to rise over the year. So again, that's something we want to look at and see why that is. So again, to pull that data and really look at those scores and see if those scores are changing and the scores are still going up or not.
So you're saying this is where you thought you'd be?
No. No, as a matter of fact, are you looking at the algebra foundations? I'm not sure.
The last two.
I'm not sure of the question.
Algebra foundations and algebra basic skills.
Right, well, algebra basic skills is a different one. So I'm addressing algebra foundations first.
Well, okay, but I mean.
So again, so if I'm.
They're the same. They're relatively the same.
I know, but they're two different things, David, is what I'm saying.
I understand that.
It's two different groups of students.
But as you present to us, and I look at the trend in the bar charts from page to page, the striking difference is in these two here.
Absolutely.
And it's not easy to understand how you end up. Now, you said the cut scores change. Okay, I understand that. It's just that it changes by such a large amount that I asked you, what did you expect to end up with? And you said you don't display that. It might be helpful to have a little dotted line. Here's where we thought we'd be, given these changes in what you described as cut scores, so that it would be more understandable about where you ended up relative to where you thought you'd be. If in fact these cut scores are going to change like that.
I understand that, and so that's a great question. However, again, we really just got this data as well. So that would be part of the response is A, to look at the cut scores and see if there's something there. Secondly, is look at what's happening. So say the algebra foundations here, again, if I were to make a prediction based on, earlier in the year, then I would think that that would follow the same trend as the others. We've done a lot of work at the high school this year. We've been working with UConn, with MEAG School, and their math education department, and they've been doing professional development, they've been doing training, they've been doing coaching, we've been doing a lot of work there. So I would have expected to see that. But again, just looking at this data and just getting it recently, I'm asking myself, I think, the same questions you are, trying to find out what the reason behind that is. Does that make sense to you?
Okay, when you're going to find out? I mean, it's good to see this, but I mean, so.
Well, David, I understand that, but I mean, if I just have gotten the data, then it's going to take some time to really look into it and
we
see
don't
what
know
it is.
that when we see this.
I understand
we
that.
don't know that you just got it as well. It might be helpful to say that, because when the chair says, now what questions do we have, we start to ask them based on what we're seeing. It's understandable now that you tell me you've just seen them as well. So I guess, I'm not trying to be flip about this, but does someone want to come back in several weeks or in September and talk about this further, or what?
That's coming.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Hill. The mathematics department will do an item analysis
Right.
of the entire test. They're just implementing the Common Core State Standards for the first time, and the algebra standards are much higher than where we've been teaching. So I think Mr. Osmond actually mentioned a couple of minutes ago that there are some things that our students have been taught and are not retaining across the year. And so we need to look deeper at that. There are a lot of things that we need to look deeper at. I was going to mention in a few moments when I talk about vision for the district, Algebra 1. That is a huge change we've made. All our freshmen must take at least Algebra 1 now. And so, and as a result, many of our 8th graders, many more of our 8th graders are taking Algebra 1 than have ever taken it before. But we need to have high expectations. If they're taking Algebra 1 in 8th grade, they need to know that material and own it. And so we really need to change our curriculum to match our expectations. And that's the work in progress. It's very messy, messy work right now. But yes, they'll do an item analysis in the fall when they get back together and say, because they're going to have to change next year's curriculum, kind of build the plane as they fly it throughout the year and say, where were we lacking? Where were our students lacking? What didn't we teach thoroughly?
Mr. Campus, go as well.
And then, as I recall, there was a request for a math interventionist and it to be added into our budget considerations. Now that I realize this information is relatively new, does that change where you might wish to place the interventionist?
We actually hired a mathematics interventionist at the high school through the Alliance grant this past year. However, we were unsuccessful in hiring one until, I think she started in January.
End of January.
End of January, and it's one of our own teachers. So we were eventually able to replace one of our own teachers, but we couldn't hire, and no one would take that particular job. They wanted a classroom, people coming in from the outside. So in January, one of our own teachers said that she would be the interventionist, and so she is. She's been on the job for 5 months.
So, and again, so there, as far as the high school, we do now have an interventionist in place, and so we're really planning for the next year. Again, starting so late in the year, it was difficult to try and even plan and schedule and whatnot. So we did as much, that was another thing that we did, that again, tried to do as much as we could there to help students.
Ms. Morasso, I had seen your hand before. Did you have something you wanted to add as well?
I was just going to go down the same path that Mr. Kemp did. One of the goals of our universal screens is to identify students, as Mr. Osmond said, who are at risk, and then to provide interventions through the SRBI model. We have, found where we have had weaknesses in the intervention support that we can provide at different levels because we don't have the resources to do that. So as Dr. Conway mentioned, we were fortunate this year to be able, at least in January, to hire a math interventionist, but there is a need. Students do need more time, some of them, to get them back up to grade level for the skills that they need.
Is there any other dialogue or questions? Mrs. Fisher?
I just want to make a comment that it looks like grade 6 and grade 7 need some help with computation as well. I wouldn't put it all just in algebra because the scores in computation are not very good in the spring.
Yeah, and that, again, that's been an issue, over years. And then, as I told you, I think at a recent meeting, we've really added a computation program for elementary, and that seems, again, I was pretty pleased. I think when the coaches came and shared that data with you as well, we've seen good results with that, with the computation program across the elementary schools. And again, we only began implementation with that in November, so I think over time we'll see improvements in that as well.
Thank you. Is there any other questions? Seeing none. Thank you, Mr. Osmond.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 6.2 is the elementary music curriculum for grades K to 5.
Ms. Morasso, please. Thank you.
The evaluation phase of the curriculum development cycle was completed last year by the Fine Arts Department. And as you may recall, proposals for new courses were approved for music fundamentals and ear training, Introduction to Musical Theater, Digital Photography, and Printmaking. The board approved a course name change for Photography 3, and the board also approved a new text in Music and Theory and Practice. Additionally, the work of curriculum review and development began in earnest this year. The enormity of this work to completely revise a K-12 fine arts curriculum according to our elements of curriculum as defined in Greater Expectations was a challenge. And with that said, tremendous effort was begun this year to revise the music and art curriculum. This evening at the board curriculum subcommittee meeting, Jill Goldberg, our finance coordinator, introduced the elementary music curriculum in grades 1 through 5. That curriculum, upon approval, will be posted to our website where all of our faculty will have access to it. And the elementary music curriculum does include now 2 new assessment pieces that will populate the assessment blueprint. At the elementary level in grades 1 through 5, all students 3 times a year will participate in both a performance task and a literacy assessment. So that will be administered uniformly across the district.
Thank you, Ms. Morasso. Are there questions regarding this curriculum, or there is a proposed motion? Ms. Bush.
I'd like to make a motion that the Vernon Board of Education approve the elementary music curriculum for grades 1 to 5.
I have a motion. Do I have a second on that motion? Actually, you're right. It is K through 5.
No, it is 1 to 5.
Okay.
The K has not fully been developed because of some changes in the program.
So it is for 1 to 5. Do I have a second on the motion? Ms. Goldich? I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? Ms. Arnold?
I hope it's not out of line to comment that Mrs. Goldberg's notebooks that she brings in with the way she's organized everything, they ought to be a model for every other curriculum development that if a non-teacher like me can pick it up and follow the sequence and understand it and growth upon growth year after year, I just think it's a wonderful, wonderful example of curriculum development from grade to grade.
Thank you for those comments. And Ms. Goldberg, I believe, is in the room. Thank you. Is there any other discussion? That book is going around, but I'm going to call that motion to a vote by a show of hands. All in favor of approving the 1 to 5 curriculum? And that's unanimous. Thank you. Moving on to item 7.0, which is our general business. Item 7.1 is the healthy food certification. Dr. Conlon? I apologize. 6.3. My fingers got a little bit happy. 6.3, Superintendent's Vision is next. I apologize.
Thank you very much, Mr. Houle. I've been working for probably 4 weeks now, and I was hoping to present this at your last meeting, but the last meeting had quite a long agenda. I think it was 11:10 when we finished, so I saved it for another 2 weeks. What I've been working on is what I would call the elevator speech. This is what I'm hoping eventually, and it's still in draft form. It's too long. You could not speak this if you were going up while our elevator's slow, so maybe you could get there in our elevator, but generally this is a little bit too long. This needs to be what you respond when people said, what are you doing, where are you going, how are you getting there? And I see, and have from day one, there's 3 phases to our work. The first work are all those technical changes. And the technical changes involve the written curriculum, the creation of the assessments, putting Algebra 1 in grade 9, putting writing in kindergarten. All of these decisions that are very technical. It includes scheduling and things like that, or how you might arrange a building, or how you might move classrooms, or put students in classrooms. So these are technical, recruiting and retaining teachers and administrators. Those are all technical changes. Those things will not change a district. They may improve little pockets, getting good people here and there, putting some things in with good teachers, that's wonderful. The second phase, and we are right now, I would say, in all three phases, but mostly in phase 2, because we have been working on phase 1 for 3 years now, rewriting curriculum, hiring and only retaining the best, and that's hard work, but it is not the real hard work, nor is it the messy work. The next phase is extremely messy, and that's where you move from technical to adaptive change. That's where we needed the sense of urgency. When we were named an Alliance District we found out really in January 2012. We weren't actually named until June 2012. But when we were named in January, I felt that was going to create the sense of urgency that we needed to do this other work. That people would say, okay, we do have to do that, we do have to change. Because the technical changes you can make all day long, and that's not going to change achievement in Vernon. That is not going to improve our schools. So we needed to move to the adaptive changes. Those are the hard ones, as I said. So this is moving people around. It talks about people. Where are we going to put them? Are they in the right seat on the bus? I've always taught 4th grade. What do you mean you want me to teach 2nd grade? I've always taught kindergarten. I'm not leaving my babies. Yes, you're going to be perfect in 3rd grade. Getting people, and those are tough because people don't want to do those different things. They have to learn a new curriculum. Implementing the curriculum, you just heard from both Mr. Gussie and Mr. Osmond at the stages that we are in. We are still, we're not halfway there in terms of our curriculum and implementing our curriculum. We're implementing as we're going. We're building the plane and flying it at the same time. And moving along, and we are going to see the results of that new curriculum and those assessments informing our instruction and informing curricular revision. But we're not there yet. We're going pieces and pieces, and it's not linear, absolutely not linear at all. This improvement is, I don't even know what to, there's so many threads to it, and we just have to keep going. So we do have a curriculum revision plan that Mrs. Marassa put in probably 1.5 years ago now. And we are following that. But because we have not revised curriculum in so long, we're not doing it on schedule. We'll keep going and we're not stopping things. We're moving along. But things like English language arts is taking several years, not 1 year. When we're through this first revision cycle, then things should take 1 year. The revision cycle, just the evaluation, the revision, and then the implementation of whatever new has to be. But we have to keep on top of that, and that's what we weren't doing before. Those are huge. The adaptive changes were, that would be like putting in readers and writers workshop. Our teachers are doing that in all schools. It is not pervasive at this point, but they're moving towards that kind of a model. Both Mr. Gussie and Mr. Testa, who will take Mr. Osmond's place, are very well versed in Readers and Writers Workshop and a workshop model for mathematics as well. The professional growth that teachers need. We put a curriculum for writing into the kindergarten this year. Our kindergarten teachers said, no way, they're not writing. It's not going to happen. But they did it because they were told to do it. So for them, a technical change, all right, show me what to do, which is a little adaptive. I'll do it. And we actually had several teachers go back to the coaches and say, I was wrong, I cannot believe what my kids are doing in writing. It is phenomenal, and they can do it, and they are great. So these adaptive changes, this is the mess, this is the swamp that we are in right now because we're not there. We're not halfway through what we need to do right now in terms of creating the assessments, in terms of creating and implementing the curriculum. We're still doing that. We're still doing a lot of the phase 1 work while we're moving into phase 2. Phase 3 is really the fun stuff. Phase 3 is when the curriculum has been implemented and these assessments are telling us what we want them to tell us. Mr. Gussie mentioned really 2 different types of assessments. The universal screening assessments are telling us how we can help kids who are not where we want them to be. And they're telling us, as Mr. Osmond indicated, the medical model. So you take the temperature, they don't just give you an antibiotic when you have a fever. They have to go further. They have to look at the blood work and see what's wrong so they know exactly what to give you, if anything. So So the assessments tell us that. But the other assessments, the ones that we spent a little bit of time on with the pie charts, those assessments will tell us and predict how our students will do on those national exams. Those are the ones that are going to be on the standards. And again, we are still creating those assessments. We're creating them, they're going to inform us, and as we learn more and as we implement and as the teachers learn more about implementing Common Core, this is all brand new, then those assessments will better predict how our kids are going to do. And our teachers will know. You heard the comment, it was Mr. Gussie said that teachers didn't know. And if they don't know because they didn't have a written curriculum, then we cannot expect that of them. We have phenomenal teachers in the system. They need to know what they're supposed to be teaching and how, because it's different. It's different from when we all went to school. So going to the third phase, and we have started the third phase. We're scratching at the third phase. But going to the third phase, that's where you create multiple opportunities for students at all levels. We're looking at a possibility of themed schools in grades 4 and 5. I've asked the principals to just brainstorm, think about what they might do. I'm hoping to bring that to you in the fall so that we can talk about it for the following year, for the budget season, obviously, and for the following year. Wouldn't that be exciting to have each of our 5 elementary schools pick up a theme and allow our students to move across the district to whatever school they wanted according to that theme? We need to create something in our middle school. Is it a school within a school, an international baccalaureate school? We have students who can achieve and can get their international baccalaureate certificates at the end of 8th grade and then again at the end of 12th, which is an international degree, or diploma, excuse me. Blended learning at the high school. We have, when you look at our AP testing, we have ECE courses, early college experience courses, and we also have advanced placement courses. We have almost 1,000 students, or we do have 1,000 students in our high school. I think we only have 49 taking AP exams. That is atrocious. That is absolutely atrocious. Our students need to be supported in that. And so if it's the amount of the test, then we need a line in our budget that says we're supporting every student that takes an AP class. Sophomores should be taking AP classes. We should not be limiting students who want to achieve. We should be pushing them to achieve. Students who want to graduate in 3 years, 4 years, or 5 years, it's up to them. We had a couple of 3-year graduates the other night who went through our school because they planned very carefully what they needed to do. We need to encourage our students to do this. The last bullet there is the new student intervention team. I call it the SWAT team. So Mrs. Buchanan said, what does SWAT stand for? And I thought, well, it doesn't really stand for anything. It's the new student intervention team. I can picture a group of maybe only 2 people, a mathematics interventionist and a reading literacy interventionist. And when we have a new student to a school, going directly to that student, assessing those students' needs, deciding what interventions that student needs, providing those interventions or connecting with those interventions to make sure that by the end or middle of the school year, that student is up to where every other child is. We don't do that now. We have a new student comes in and the teacher says hi and introduces them to the class. We don't have data on the new student, and we need to be doing something very thoughtfully and proactively for all of our students. So obviously, I've taken more than an elevator to share this, but this is really the essence is 3 phases, and maybe phases are not the word. As I said, I wrote this 4 weeks ago. I have made only 1 or 2 changes since then. But it really is that, step 1 is technical. It's write the curriculum, get it done, create the assessments, get them done, hire, write, retain correctly as well. Phase 2 is implement the curriculum, implement those assessments. And as I said, we're still a little bit in phase 1, but right now we are mostly in phase 2. And when you change curriculum, your scores go down. When you change the way you're doing business, achievement goes down. So I'm telling you that. This is what I expect. It is not pretty. This is absolutely what we expect. We should all expect here in Vernon. We are changing, as you remember, in another year or 2 to our new assessments. We'll be assessing those Common Core state standards. They will not be assessing what the mastery test assess at all. These are 2 completely different tests. So that middle, where we are, and people still want to hang on to those technical changes. Oh, just move this person here or do this, as opposed to change the way I operate.
That's so tough. It is so tough. If I've been teaching for 10 years, it is so tough to change what I'm teaching and the way I'm teaching it. Very, very difficult. It requires incredible professional growth. So phase 1, curriculum and assessment. Phase 2, professional growth for teachers, implementing that assessment, very, very key. And phase 3 is when you fly. And that's when the district truly moves into one of the highest performing districts. I've seen it happen, it can happen, and it will happen here in Vernon. So I wanted you to have that. I'd be glad to shrink it some more. But I think you need those talking points to know where we are, where we've been, and where we're going. And it absolutely can happen. Again, I'll try to shrink it for you. But I needed to share this with you so you had that in mind.
Thank you, Dr. Conway. Questions or points that folks would like to have additional information on? Ms. Sermon.
Rhetorically, I guess, I don't know how Vernon got here. And I guess it doesn't really matter as long as those people taking command of this understand how they got here and we don't go back there again, number one. Also, other towns have the same challenges and they rose up to them. Vernon did not. I'd like to, maybe it won't help me, but to me it goes hand in hand with knowing what we did poorly in order to make the changes and then sustain going forward. This is, in my opinion, I see the glass half empty. I know that there are those who see the glass half full, and you have to, Dr. Conway, because you're flying the plane that you keep referencing, so I get that. But I think there's so much to be disappointed about and focus on. Other towns have the same issues with curriculum and changes and Common Core and assessments and evaluations and all that, and for some reason they haven't fallen on their face like Vernon has. So I'd like somewhere along the line by phase, I can't celebrate phase 3 because we're still writing curriculum. So although that's a lovely thing to look forward to, I still worry and feel awful about the kids that are not benefiting from while we're stuck in this swamp that you referred to as well. I feel a real responsibility for them, and there is no excuse for those kids who have been, my opinion, cheated. I said it before, those education experts, people at the Department of Education will tell you that educating kids is an experiment. They try these things and they attach these buzzwords and then everybody thinks that will work and guess what, it doesn't. So they just keep changing. That's what education is about. One example is, I think we all read the information from CAVE about the change in position on leveling kids. And that used to be the way to go, and then someone in an ivory tower decided that that wasn't the way to go, and now somebody in a different ivory tower is deciding that maybe that was a mistake to de-level kids, that it's not serving them. So I would like Vernon to get solid. I don't feel like we're solid at all. We're grasping, and you're trying, and you're writing this and experimenting with that and trying to understand what the numbers mean. I hope I'm around when Vernon really gets their feet underneath them and can start doing a good job and not be a disappointment and not be letting kids down.
Mr. Kennedy.
I take a little bit different viewpoint of how Vernon's done over the years relative to falling on our face. I disagree with that. Our children are going on to some of the finest universities in the country. I didn't sit there and shake my head, Michelle, while you were talking. We have our opinions about what the state of Connecticut went and did when they decided to pass out money to all of the various school systems that they, in their view, needed to have money passed out to it. And so there were 15 schools considered not doing well, and then there were 20. And finally, when there were enough designated schools to include Stanford, they got to 30. And that doesn't mean that Vernon was failing. Our kids have done very well as they leave the school system, and that's your opinion, not shared by everybody. That's all.
Ms. Bush?
I agree with Mr. Kemp, and I know that other school districts are going through the growing pains of the new Common Core curriculums, and they're all working to develop the curriculum, same as Vernon. And I don't think Vernon is behind the 8 ball on this. I think they are right where they need to be. So I also think that we're doing what we need to do, like other schools in our state.
Thank you. Seeing no more hands, we're going to move on. We'll move on to item 7.0, general business. Item 7.1, healthy food certification.
Thank you, Mr. Gould. This is the annual Healthy Food Certification. You do this every June for the State Department. And there are 2 parts to it. The first part is that the board certifies that all food offered for sale to students during the school day will meet the healthy food standards. The second is that the board says that you will exempt food that is sold after school in connection with an event, however, not from a school store or a vending machine, but in connection with an event at the event, such as a football game, at a basketball game, at the volleyball lock-in, whatever it is, that you will allow foods that are not on the healthy food standards list to be sold. And so I would ask that you make that motion so that we can say that we will do that.
Ms. Fisher?
I move that the Board of Education certify that all food items offered for sale to students in the Vernon Public Schools meet the Connecticut nutrition standards published by the Connecticut State Department of Education.
I have a motion by Ms. Fisher. Do I have a second? Ms. Bush?
Second.
A motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? Ms. Sarno?
Just clarification about, on page 1, the wording is, in any fundraising activities on school premises, whether or not school sponsored. Are PTO fundraisers considered activities on school premises?
They're not during school time. Students are not allowed to sell things during school time.
Okay, so that means that a fundraiser could be anything that the school chooses to sell.
Yes, it could, but the board's wellness policy insists that there be at least one healthy food option, if it's food. So if you're selling Munson's chocolates, you need to sell fruit.
Those don't conflict in any way?
No, those are outside of school time.
Any other questions? Seeing none, I'm going to call that motion to a vote by a show of hands. All in favor? And those opposed? I show one opposed, and that motion does carry. Moving on to item 7.2, VCMS YMCA after school program at the community school at Maple Street School. Dr. Conlon, I saw Dr. Purcell's in the audience.
Yes, I would invite Dr. Purcell to the microphone. Dr. Purcell has been working very hard with John Riley, the executive director of the YMCA, to secure funds for the community school. So I'll turn this over to Dr. Purcell.
Hi, thank you. I think it's important for us to let you know when community agencies are working hard to support some of our initiatives. And like Dr. Conway said, we've been meeting with John Riley, executive director of the YMCA, since September, trying to see how we could collaborate to support the community school efforts. And so Mr. Riley and John Bertolato, who's the YMCA program director, have been meeting with us every month or every couple of months, again, trying to see what they can do to help us, intensify and improve our after-school programming. So what we're looking at right now, the grant you actually approved us applying for speaks to this as well, but What we're looking for is to collaborate with the YMCA to, again, provide more intensive after-school programming. What the Y would be able to provide us is really in the area of staffing is really the big improvement. We have much better staff-to-student ratios. They're looking at 10 students to 1 staff member. Right now, we're just working on a purely volunteer basis. The staff that they would be able to bring to us, they provide training for those staff. And again, this would provide better opportunities for us to increase our mentoring that we can do through community school efforts, our homework assistance, and our academic interventions that we could provide. The students would still have access to all the programs that are provided by our volunteers, karate, dance, the Good News Club, all those kinds of things. But the YMCA would also support those activities, and the staff would support those activities. So right now, as we currently stand, the YMCA has secured $20,000, which provide 2 days of this type of programming. Our goal is obviously to provide that type of programming 5 days a week. So again, the grant that you just approved us applying for would be the answer to that problem for us. The grant money would allow us to provide this program 5 days a week. Again, we would still rely on the wonderful volunteers to provide the different activities for our students, but again, our students would get that much more intensive support through the YMCA staff. If we don't get the grant, then to be honest with you, it's an extremely competitive grant. There are very few awarded. I think that we have the right things in there to be successful. I think they'll look favorably about the fact that our community program is right in a school and we have access to the kids. They're looking for that. They're looking for programs that already provide snacks and dinner. We already have that. They're looking for collaboration between the personnel and teachers. Obviously, that's easy for us because again, we're right in the school, so we're hopeful. But honestly, from what we've been told, it's highly competitive, and they do favor school systems and towns that already have a grant. So we'll see. But we believe that we have the components in place. It's taken a lot of time to write that grant, a lot of hours, and so if we're not successful with this one, we'll continue to apply for grants so that we can provide some of that programming. I really feel like we're on the verge of bringing the community school to the next level, where we're providing, again, more intensive academic support. And I really want to, again, emphasize how much we are appreciative of the YMCA's efforts in terms of supporting that and wanting to work with us to collaborate to improve some of those efforts.
Thank you. Any questions for Dr. Pascal? Seeing none. Thank you very much for your efforts, and we're hopeful on that grant. Item 7.3, the discipline consequences report from Brennan Center Middle School. Dr. Conway, and I see Mr. Kane is in the audience if he wants to come forward.
Yes, he is, thank you. The board had requested a high school report, and there's a follow-up. Dr. Driscoll was able to, in your info portion, Dr. Driscoll was able to pull together some information from the last couple of years because you were looking for a history. Mr. Kane was not able to do that. We do have the list of consequences and the list of offenses. And then he does have the two-year report from the Swiss, from the state that was talking about PBIS. So I'll turn this over to Mr. Kane.
Good evening. The data is here in front of you from the IPASS reports. We just culled it from our data that we use each day in reference to student discipline and attendance. What I'd like to bring your attention to is that we do many things in the school to try and ensure the students are happy in school and that they're able to learn the social skills and help each other to learn how to get along with each other. Some of the things that we do is we have an advisory. We reported on that earlier in the year, so we do that once every 2 weeks. And in the advisory, one of the topics that we discuss is getting along with others and listening to others and empathy. In addition to that, we have a social, emotional skills program that some of the other from the elementary schools do as well. It's called Second Steps, and each of our students participated in that. It was offered by the guidance counselors, and some of the things that we learned in Second Steps is conflict resolution, mediation, how to understand others or how to communicate with others effectively. So that's some of the things that we've done with Second Steps. And in addition to that, we do school-wide PBS, which is at the beginning of the year. We go over the expectations for behavior and all of the environments, whether it be non-structured, such as passing in the hallway or coming off the bus, or the structured environment, which is the classroom, other places where adults are actively supervising individual students. So it could be the cafeteria as well. So I think we do a lot to try to provide a very structured, safe environment for students. I mean, one of the other things that we do is we did the PBS curriculum. We took it from the PBS literature for bully prevention, which is stop, walk, and talk. It's a technique that we ask students to avail themselves of, and many of them do it, which is essentially if a child is bothering you or someone's being mean to you, to ask them to stop first. If they continue on, to walk away and to report it. And so we try to make sure the students understand that we mean report, and it's not tattletelling, you know, and it's certainly not snitching. It's just reporting what has happened to you. So we try to do a number of things to ensure that the students are able to remain and function well with each other as a community in school. Nevertheless, though, we still have situations that do occur where we have students who struggle with some of the following expectations. One of the things that we've done is we've looked at, if you have the information in front of you here, we've looked at the students who are repeatedly referred. We have, I believe, 524 office referrals. Now, what happens here, the process is that a staff member would see a student violating an expectation of the school that's already been taught, and it's been rehearsed, and been reinforced, and yet there's a violation of that expectation, perhaps in the classroom, disrespectful, being disruptive perhaps in the classroom, or in the restroom, for instance. So what occurs then is that office referral is brought to the administrator interviews the student, and sometimes there's immediate consequence, and sometimes it's more research, bringing it to find out the context or the antecedent as to why this behavior occurred. Sometimes you go to the school social worker, or you go to the guidance officer, and you try to get more information about the student, because sometimes there's some underlying things maybe happening at home, and the student is very upset and arrived that way during the course of the day. So we try to find that type of information. But then there are consequences for sure. So the consequences could be, the most severe consequence we have obviously is out-of-school suspension, and then we have an in-school suspension. We have detention after school, we have detention during lunch. In addition to that, the teachers may have a classroom detention if they do, if they think that the offense is limited to the classroom. So we do a number of things that, consequence relative that we think is fitting for the behavior violation that has occurred. We have, for instance, if you look at the consequences, we have 209 consequences that we know that occurred in the classroom, and these are consequences, incidents such as insubordination, disrespect, or disruptive behavior in the classroom. And we try to ensure that the classrooms are very well structured. If you come to PCMS, what you would see in most all classes is that the objective is on the board, and the teacher has begun with an introduction for the day, and there's a logical sequence for the activities, typically on the board, although sometimes it's projected on the screen. And so the students have a sense of understanding as to what's expected of them during the course of that class. So we try to ensure that that occurs for every classroom. We've done a lot throughout PCMS to ensure that the objectives are understood well by the students, and they come directly from the standards or the other information that the student needs to learn for that day. So I think it's a very structured environment. I still think, though, however, we do have students who struggle with even structure, which sometimes is very difficult for them. They may have, when we look more in depth in it, sometimes the students' organization or executive functioning skills is a struggle for them. And so we do what we call the check-in, check-out program, where at the beginning of the day, we try to prevent that child from having a difficult day by having an adult meet them the first thing in the morning. They go over their homework assignments, they go over a behavior plan with the child, and try to ensure that when they arrive in the classrooms, they're well organized and they're just together, for that particular day. So we do many things, I think, to try to prevent these things from occurring, where a child may show up disorganized and then perhaps arrive at class tardy, and then maybe get lunch detention or absolute detention because they've been tardy once, that type of thing. So I think, DCMS, despite our best efforts, we still do have some students who struggle with their faculty expectations sometimes. I would like to say that 87% of our students have not received referral. And so we do, I think that if you look at the PBS literature, it shows that if you are 85% or above in terms of students not getting multiple office referrals, then that is an indicator that your PBS policy is working, is being successful. Now, obviously, we'd like for it to go up from there, but we're at 87% as we speak today. So 13% of our students have been referred more than once. I think that's the difficulty in helping us understand better what is necessary for our students to be successful throughout the day, so they can avoid the type of behaviors that oftentimes result in suspensions from school, whether it be in school or out of school, even after school detentions. But if you have any questions.
Mr. Percy.
Mr. Kane, the first page, I get the first column as a consequence count, and then there's 6 columns that follow that obviously add up to the first column, but there's no headers, can you give some descriptions of the 6 columns following the first one?
I apologize for that. You got the exact report that we get, and for the purposes of reporting to the state, this is the report that we have, so you get exactly what I get. The column which says consequence count is what is the total amount, and the other ones are codes that are submitted to the state of Connecticut when we report our discipline data. I don't have the exact understanding of what those different, how to distinguish those various columns. I can get that information for you, though.
Thank you.
I can add very little to what Mr. Kane just said. If the headers were there, I think the headers read 1,000, 2,000,
Yes.
3,000, 4,000, et cetera. So they don't give you very much more. And when it's put into the system, I know that Carrie Collins, our data manager, has coded what the secretaries of the administrators put in. And so it would automatically go to a certain column, but it would feed into whatever it was. I think it's by severity.
Other questions for Mr. Kane? Ms. Coolidge.
Thank you. Mr. Kane, you said 13% of the students have been sent for referrals.
No, I apologize.
Say that part again?
13% of our students have been referred more than once.
Referred more than once.
Yes.
So 13% of, was it 730 students?
Yes.
Is like, what, 100 kids-ish?
Close.
So 100 kids, and the 524 is occurrences?
Yes.
So 100 kids have created the 524 occurrences?
Yes. Less than, I think a little less than perhaps 100 kids, but yes.
Okay. Because that 524 is not 524 kids.
No, it's not. It's the number of incidents,
So it's
occurrences.
So a fairly small minority of the student body is creating a whole bunch of incidents.
Which is typical throughout the PBS literature, regardless of which state you go in. We've attended conferences for PBS, where other states represented, such as Illinois, Michigan, and it's very typical in a comprehensive middle school such as ours, where you have a range of students and behaviors and understandings of how school works, that is the case. And above 15%, that's to say 85% is the mark that PBS says. PBS has never said that 100% of the students would be able to follow it. It said that 85% is the goal, and we have achieved that. And I think now our concern is how do we further impact that 13% for us.
Thank you.
I'm going to acknowledge Mrs. Arnn if she still has her question, otherwise I'll go back to Mr. Percy. Mr. Percy, you have the floor.
Just a curiosity question, could an office referral cover more than one of these?
Yes, they could. For the most part, our office referrals have one issue on it, but sometimes it could be two. For instance, it could be a fight on the bus.
Okay.
So it would be a physical altercation on the bus. So that would be two.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Ms. Arnn?
Under expectations, Mr. Kane, I was just curious about the numbers that reported. It was only 9 out of 10 teachers said that they were teaching the behavior expectations to students in their classroom. That 14 out of 15 students could tell what the expectations were, and some of the staff could do that as well. Is there a reason why those numbers are so minimal, I guess? 9 out of 10 staff reported. There are certainly more staff there at the middle school than 9 out of 10.
Yes, when they do this evaluation, they go around at random and they ask staff and they ask students what are the expectations, and they expect them to be able to repeat them right off. And some don't. Some aren't able to. They may get 2 out of 3, or 2 out of 4, and then that person they consider not to be able to do it. However, we do go over the expectations of the year. We go over throughout the year. We give award ceremonies for behavior as well as for academics, for effort, conduct. So we do repeat them. One thing that we'll probably do in the future that we haven't done this year is to announce expectations every day for announcements. I know some schools do that, and I think it's helpful to do so. But we do have the expectations posted in places such as the cafeteria, in the hallways, and other places.
The report at the very back of the packet is old, is that correct?
It should be 2 reports.
PBIS and then SOAR with Eagle Pride, that one seemed to be old, is that true?
There should be one that's a comparison that we use. So in this particular case, we should compare, I think 2011 and 2013. It's the same exact evaluation procedure, and our objective is to improve on those indicators.
And that shows.
And staff, I think, has worked very hard to implement with fidelity PBS. It's not easy. It's also some of the change that Dr. Conway had referred to. It gets very messy, and sometimes it gets worse before it gets better. But I think you have to stay the course.
When Mr. Bain was here, he mentioned that they'd like some teeth to the policies. Is that right? Am I remembering that correctly? That he was looking for more specific support and consequences and all that. Do you feel that there's anything that needs to be more delineated in policy, student handbook, that would be helpful to your cause?
Well, I think that the students need more opportunities for social skills support. I think they need more opportunities to frankly be captured earlier. We do an SRS screener this year that we started. Mrs. Morasso helped us implement that. I do think that we need to continue to do things like that and early capture kids and find out, what are their concerns, and to learn how to intervene effectively for them earlier on. Many of the students, they start in September and they go all the way through January, and they do perfectly fine. But then, mistakes occur, and it may have happened in March. So we may have some students on the list here who went all the way from September to March, which I think is pretty good, especially for 6th graders. And then they made a mistake, in March, and maybe was referred for that. But I do think that some of our students, at 13% for sure, would benefit from more social support, social skills, conflict resolution, learning how to de-escalate behaviors, and really a lot of, I would say, executive functioning skill tasks, which is like study skills, organization, memory, and things of that sort. I think sometimes they get a little fidgety in the classroom, And that's an issue for them. So as opposed to policy, to answer your question, I would think it's more in terms of helping the students to gain the skill set that they need to be successful in an environment with others in a community.
Is there peer mediation at the middle school?
We didn't actively do peer mediation for the last couple of years. However, that is a concern that maybe we could do that once again through the advisory.
Seeing no other hands, thank you, Mr. King, for your report.
Thank you.
Item 7.4 is review of policy number 9325.5, which is a bylaw change or a bylaw adjustment. And I'm not sure, is this going to go to you, Dr. Conway, or to the policy?
If I might
chair?
introduce it, Mr. Kemp, do you mind 1 second?
Sure, I mean, it's only here because it's the first reading. You're not expected to vote on it, and preferably you won't, although it's your option. But the idea is when there's something significant, we present it to you, and then in the following meeting, which in this case won't be until September, is when the...
Actually, it'll be August.
When?
It'll be in August.
I'm sorry. Oh, thank you. The other one is a change of an existing bylaw, so it's the first one. So that's my only introduction. All right.
Dr.
That's
Conway?
what I was going to mention, that one of the board's bylaws does govern the revision of bylaws. And so that is what Mr. Kemp is referring to. And there's a 2-week window after it's presented to the board, or the board has received it in writing before you vote on it. So that's all I wanted to say.
So this would be, if there's any dialogue or concerns that could be presented to you, or
now or
before we vote on it in
before
August.
you vote on it, sure.
Mr. Percy?
Is the first one a new policy?
Yes.
So we have nothing in our bylaws right now about requesting information?
I can't say we could, I mean, maybe somebody could detect something somewhere, but...
So it's not a review of a policy?
Correct. Whereas the other one is a review of an existing one.
Okay.
A very minor one, by the way, where we add a word. And so even though it was only a word, we thought, some of us anyway, thought we would bring it forward to you, let's say as a matter of courtesy. But you'll notice the second one is only 4 lines. That's the existing policy that's being reviewed.
But it does satisfy the 2-week review period, or
A minimum.
Minimum
Yeah.
review period.
And again, that's our process. So we just happen to be hitting this one when we're approaching a longer time frame until we meet again.
If there are no additional questions on 7.4, we can move on and put the same question out for 7.5. That's a single word change to a bylaw, and again, it's the 2-week review period. If there's no discussion on that, we'll move on to 7.6. 7.6 is the Alliance District grant positions. Dr. Conway.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cole. The list you have attached in your board packet includes, not in bold, the positions that we currently have, and in bold, the positions that we are looking to add in the Alliance District. Now they're calling it amendments. So year 2 amendments is the latest phrase that they're calling it. So they're not calling it a plan, they're not calling it a revision, they're calling it amendments. And that is due on Friday. Mrs. Buell is our writer this year, with the input of Mrs. Morasso and myself and many of the other administrators. I would like to share with you what is there. The commissioner had indicated that he had 3 goals for this grant: the implementation of the Common Core state standards, the implementation of the teacher evaluation model, and intervention in our lowest performing schools. In addition, some of the methods that he planned for us to use would be extended learning time and common planning time. And we have addressed all of those or will within our amendment that we would submit on Friday. So in this list, you can see that we have reduced, we had 3 teacher coaches that were in this grant. One was behavior, 2 were mathematics, and we've reduced that to 2 by 1. The 4.5 kindergarten teachers would be the kindergarten teachers for Center Road, Lake Street, and Skinner. The 2 Common Core implementation specialists, so these are people who are going to be writing curriculum and assessments as well as ensuring that it is being implemented across the district. And then the art and music teachers, that's what we need in funding in order to create common planning time for all classroom teachers in all 5 elementary schools. The middle school has it with their team planning time, the high school has it not completely by department, but there are courses, teachers that teach the same course that have it. So the only other area would be under strengthening SRBI, so the district initiatives and the goals are still the same as they were last year, would be adding 1.0 mathematics interventionist. So right now we have 0.5 at Skinner Road, so we'd be looking to split this person as well, most likely in our 2 lowest performing schools, which would be Maple and Northeast School. So in looking at this, the implementation of the Common Core, we have the implementation specialists, implementation of teacher evaluation, we have our SEED coordinators, so that they are not in this grant application, but we do have that support. Intervention in the lowest performing schools is all-day kindergarten and the interventionist. And extended learning time, we've hit that one with all-day kindergarten, and common planning time with the art and music. So we have hit all of the commissioners' high points. We did receive, and this is a draft, we did receive a copy of the report. Thank you. From the state. They came and did a site visit probably a month ago or so, and our technical advisors came. And so they were looking to talk about systems and what systems we have in place and where they could suggest we could move forward, either with the Alliance District or not. But these were just done for Alliance districts. They went to all 30 districts. We were complimented on our organization and the fact that everyone could speak to all of the questions. But this is designed to support the planning efforts and to identify promising strategies. So I'm just going to highlight a few of them. Within academics, the curriculum is being aligned to the Common Core state standards. They were pleased to see that. They were very pleased to see that we had 3 literacy specialists and we had added 2 math coaches, teacher coaches in the grant. Pleased to see that we're using common assessments, universal screenings, and starting to develop our own performance assessments and using instructional rounds across the district. Areas for growth, again, Common Core state standards, we're not there yet. We're aligning everything we're doing, and common planning time. So I'm not going through all of the bullets, but common planning time was another area for growth, and we have hit that one. Under human capital, which is a phrase I've used often, it's strengths were the increased professional development time that we've offered teachers and moving professional development to an embedded model. So having opportunities across the district, across the school year for teachers to engage in professional development using the teacher coaches as models and being able to have opportunities to meet with one another, so the common planning time fits there as well. Areas for growth, strong leadership in our low-performing schools and retention of strong teachers. Operations, our strengths were the district budget is built from the bottom up. There are many districts where it is not. There are some districts that say that the town says you're getting 1%, and there you go, and the board says, all right, we're going to spread that out, you're getting this is how much it is per student, rather than looking at student needs. So this board is complimented for that. The daily extended time of 1 hour, it says for all students. That was for all kindergarten students at 2 elementary schools and for some students at the other schools. So that was extended learning for kindergarten students only. And that's for all students at Maple and Northeast. The other schools have extended learning, but just for some students. Growth areas, upgrades in classroom technology, and they were saying the possible implementation of full-day kindergarten. So that's very exciting that we're going to be there. Culture and climate, they commended Maple Street School's community school. Dr. Pacell and I are giving a presentation on Thursday at the Summer Leadership Institute to talk about the community school as well as the other partnerships that we have with our community and families in here. We are only one of 5 in the state. We are the only suburban town to have a community school. The others are in our cities, our Hartford, New Haven, New London. And congruence with the board objectives and the Alliance District principles. We heard this again and again from our technical advisors, is that there were many districts that the Alliance grant was one of those where they got money and they weren't sure really what to do with it, and it was separate from the board's goals. And you know that the 4 goals here are really the 3 goals that the board has. We just divided 1 and 2. And so they use the word congruence, because that means complete overlap. And so they were very, very pleased to see that. Growth areas, high school attendance rate is still well below 95%, and the other schools are improving there. And then discipline issues at the high school level, as we well know, still need to be addressed, and I look forward to Mr. Rocket doing that. So I just wanted to share that with you. Again, it is a draft still. It is not out for, but it is to inform our planning process for our, whatever it's called, amendments for our new plan. So I wanted to share that with you. As we did last year, we would ask that you approve the new positions so that we can proceed with the hiring of those teachers and move forward.
So there is a proposed motion, and is there anybody sufficient?
I'll move that the Vernon Board of Education approve the Alliance District grant positions for the 2013-14 year as presented.
I have a motion. Do I have a second on the motion? Mrs. Bush.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Does anybody wish to speak to the motion? Oh. Seeing none, I'm going to call the motion to a vote by a show of hands. All in favor? And that's unanimous.
Thank you very much.
Items, let's see. Item 7.7 is the impact of June 3, 2013 lottery notification. I don't know.
Resco.
Okay. Dr. Conway.
Thank you very much. Mrs. Morasso has created or prepared a chart indicating our graduating seniors, because that was a question of the board, and what the impact on our budget is. I'm going to turn it over to her to explain. It's pretty self-explanatory, but she can say a few words.
Thank you, Dr. Conway. At the last Board of Education meeting, in your packet or your folder was a letter from CREC, the Capital Region Education Council, indicating the numbers of students who had been accepted new and accepted placement in the CREC-operated magnet schools. So there were 43 accepted, and then there were 7 other placements that were pending. The question was raised, what is the impact of that on our district and on the budget? So currently, in the 12-13 school year, we had 146 students attending magnet schools at a cost of $594,638. 10 of those were senior placements, so and that's at a savings of $41,720. If we add the 50, both the 43 accepted and the 7 pending, to get a more robust picture, that would bring then to 186 for next year, the total number of students accepted into CREC-operated magnets at a total cost of $760,758. We have budgeted in our magnet school tuition account for next year $650,000, so that would put us at this point in time in the red of $110,758. I just need to point out that the information that we received was only from the CREC-operated magnet schools. We have yet to hear from those magnet schools that operate outside the CREC region, the Arts at the Capitol Theater, Connecticut International Baccalaureate Academy, the Connecticut River Academy at Goodwin College, and Great Path Academy have yet to share with us how many seats they've opened up to Vernon students. So this is where we stand at this moment in time, and we will continue to keep the board updated on the potential impact of any additional dollars. And it would appear that there would be additional dollars that would be needed. The impact on our class sizes if these students returned, you know, really the biggest enrollment is at Two Rivers Magnet Middle School, which houses students or enrolls students in grades 6 through 8. And that would be, if they all chose to return, an impact of 20 students in those 3 grades at the middle school, which I believe could be absorbed, you know, with no issue, as well as all of the others as well. So that's where we stand at the moment.
Thank you, Ms. Morasso. Does anybody have any questions regarding this report? Mr. Kemp?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure I follow all that. So the CBIAs of the world, they are included in the current magnet school enrollments of 146. That kind of data is still, that's known because it's current, right? So it's the acceptances to CBI that we haven't heard from yet, right?
That's correct. We currently have 9 students enrolled in the Connecticut International Baccalaureate Academy. I don't know if it will continue to be 9 next year or if it will increase to another number.
But they're in the 146?
That's correct.
Okay. Are any of these of the 43, are any of these duplicates?
No, they are not.
Okay. All right. And this also doesn't include the ones that we don't pay anything for, which is the Hartford school system. That's still zero cost to us, right?
That is correct.
Okay, so there's still a number of students that attend the Hartford system. I'm not sure what that number is, but so far that hasn't been charged to us. And the approximate number of students is about what?
Probably another 40 or 50 students are attending the Hartford host magnet schools.
Okay. Thank you.
Ms. Arndt?
Debbie, do you have any information about the Two Rivers Magnets, one being middle and the other high school? Or there doesn't seem to be a progression to the high school. Can I assume that or not? Are these new students?
Two Rivers Magnet Middle School was one of the first magnet schools to open and has been in operation now for several years. The Two Rivers Magnet High School is a new component. So I think it just probably opened in the last year or 2.
So we may see those 20 students from here.
That's very possible.
Mr. Kemp?
There's still no strategic school profile data from any of these magnet schools. Is that correct?
We haven't had a strategic school profile since 2009-10 on us as well. That's correct.
Yeah, but there's never been any on the magnet
I
schools.
haven't seen it.
All right, you'll let us know when that kind of information comes out. What was the state's answer, I forgot, when we asked the general question, when are they going to be, when is there going to be full transparency available to the public relative to the performance of magnet schools?
Mr. Adamowski sent data to you after his visit with you a couple of months ago, or a month ago, it was only a month ago, and he sent some of that data to you. There's no data that's in any one place. We would have to go to each magnet school and get that data, and Mr. Adamowski had done that, and so I forwarded that on to you.
I've been away.
I'll resend it.
Yes, could you please resend it? Because I'm seeing a couple puzzled looks as if folks didn't see it. So that'd be helpful.
Yeah, because I'd be real interested to see what their student performance it consists of and what their behaviors consist of, how many kids they have to outplace and who's paying for it, and how many kids they had sent to in-school suspension and expulsions, and all of the things that we expose quite publicly all the time. And you don't know of any of that.
No, I do not.
No, I mean, you plural. the world really doesn't know. It's taken an awful long time to learn any of it. It's still not out.
Thank you. There's no other discussion. We will move on to our next topic, which is item 7.8, the Finance Committee report. And Dr. Conway, I believe you have a report from Mr. Carl.
I do, thank you, Mr. Hool. You have a handout at your table, it's a relatively thick one. I'm going to give the bird's eye view of this, and the helicopter version. Did everyone get a copy? Is there anyone missing a copy? This is, this one. Thank you. The FY13 budget updates, you do have a copy of our latest. It indicates that after the $300,000 is transferred over, that we will still be $126,854 in the red. We plan to release some encumbrances. We're thinking up to about $40,000. Then we're also looking at our prescription drug accounts. We've just been paying down continuously without looking at the need. And so we have duplicated some payments. So we're anticipating that we'll be able to recoup $120,000 there. And then Medicaid reimbursement, this would need to be approved by the town, certainly. But we were informed today by the vendor that we are using for Medicaid reimbursement that FY10, so 3 years ago, that the check, which is supposed to be here before the end of the fiscal year, is for $136,000. And that is in addition to what the town had expected in revenue. So it is very possible, I'm working with the town to be able to offset the final $126,000 in a relatively straightforward manner. The FY14 budget updates, the town's budget document, and that's like our goldenrod pages or our blue pages or our pink pages in our budget book. That is also included here for you. That was just released today, so that is there. Our budget book is being copied at this point and will be available for everyone. After last year, we put it in a comb binding for you so that you would have it in one place, and that will be ready for you. The Special Education Alternative Program, at the last meeting, you approved the creation of this program pending a discussion with the town on the revenue that would come from out-of-town students to this program. We've been unable to secure a date for that meeting at this point. And so since we do have to move forward, Mrs. Buell has been moving forward in baby steps, but continually moving forward in the hopes that we would do this. But in order to do that, we would ask that you make a motion to move an amount not to exceed $435,000 from our two tuition accounts and move that to, not the magnet school, but the two special ed non-public and public tuition accounts to the salary accounts or whatever accounts are needed to cover this particular school. This is a risk, obviously. I think that it certainly was a bold move on the board's part to investigate a new school and to approve the new school. I think that it's a risk not to do it as well at this point. I think that we can provide a wonderful program for students right here in their own town, and that should also enter into your thinking. But if we don't do this, we do have an opportunity to reduce costs by doing this. We cannot guarantee that because it will cost us to open this school. Of course, cost more in the first year than any subsequent years. So I would ask that the board entertain a discussion about this, and we would ask that the board, as I said, we really need to move forward. We need to hire, we need to do a little bit of renovation, painting, purchasing. and working with families to move students back into the district. And I know there have been a lot of preliminary conversations. Some families have actually toured the area in the high school that we would be using. And so, again, I would ask that the board support the moving forward of this program with the moving of the funding from the 2 tuition accounts to the other accounts. And Mrs. Buell is here to be able to answer. I would actually ask her to, she can speak to it much more eloquently than I, but to come to the table in case you do have any other questions.
While Ms. Buell is coming to the table, does anybody wish to make that into the form of a motion? Mr. Percy.
I'd like to make a motion that the Vernon Board of Education continue to pursue the alternative special education program as put forth, transfer the money not to exceed $435,293, and continue to try to have a conversation with the town.
Do I have a motion? Do I have a second on the motion to continue to move forward? Ms. Fisher?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any dialogue or questions of Ms. Buell? Ms. Arndt?
I'm concerned about supporting the motion because the original motion was to move forward conceptually with the alternative ed program pending discussion about tuition reimbursements. I just worried that was a risk in itself, and to compound the risk concerns me. That originally we were approving it in concept, and now we're talking committing real dollars, and I have a hard time with that.
This is directly affecting the kids in Vernon. We're not talking exclusively about taking kids in from out of town. And I think the numbers that Ms. Buell had presented, there was 5 students from Vernon that we could save that tuition, put it towards the program, and be able to get a pretty decent start on the program. It would be above and beyond to bring in students from out of town. Correct me if I'm wrong in any of those points, Ms. Buell.
That's very close. We have tentative definites, so it's, that's not quite proper. But, we have tentative definites for, we think, 3 students. I've got another 2 that are pretty definite, and potentially another couple students that we might be able to bring back. In the sort of my tentative definite students, the potential savings in out-of-district tuition and transportation costs would be over $183,000. So the amount that we're asking you to take a risk on, is reduced by some. We still have a few students to bring back in order to achieve that savings. There are also potentially other students that might need an out-of-district placement or a placement similar to what we can provide in district when we create this program. So I have one in mind immediately that might need that level of support. So I think that, and that number is not added in there. So this certainly provides an opportunity for the board to be able to provide a high-quality program for students at a much more reasonable cost to the board.
Thank you. Other dialogue or questions? Ms. Sarn?
Just to be clear, the 183,000, is that still the savings after you consider what it would cost in town to pay for those students?
The 183 is what we have in our budget right now to pay for a program for those students in a different place. And so when we return those students back, so if the program cost is $435,000, that's what, initially that's our amount that we're asking for. You minus that 183, that leaves you at 251. So that's your risk now that I don't have covered yet. But
there's still a cost associated with educating those students. So
that's built into the $435,000.
That is built.
That's what we're asking for. If the board allocates that $435,000 to come out of tuition and into other line items, that pays for the staff to run the program, the renovation that's necessary, as well as supplies, materials to get the program up and running. So that will cover. So it's direct reduction to the cost.
Is there any other questions or dialogue? Seeing none, we do have a motion on the floor. I'm going to call that motion to a vote, and that is to transfer up to $435,000 from public and non-public tuition accounts over to the salary accounts in order to cover the cost of the new special ed program. I'm going to call a motion to a vote. All in favor by a show of hands? And those opposed? I show 2 opposed, and the motion does carry. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. Thank you, board members. In food and nutrition services, we just did the healthy food certification, and we introduced you to Mr. Obgis, who is going to join us. And budget monitoring and internal control, Exhibit E, I would bring your attention to that if you can find it. I just found it. It's a single page. It looks like this, so there's not much in there. But this was a question a board member did have at the last meeting, and I know Mr. Picaro was able to share this with the Finance Committee, but I'd like to just take a moment to share it with the entire board. You can see he has 2 categories, state revenue and then revenue from programs. The state revenue is about $18.7 million. The special ed excess cost is in italics, that's a little over $1 million. That is not included in the $18 million. That is funding that comes directly from the state into the town and is used to offset the tuition. So that is already built in to the budget there. So if you look at the others, the public school transportation, non-public school transportation, Medicaid reimbursement, that is an estimate, but we do expect that this year for the fiscal year 10, as well as, I think we're in 12 now as well. And you can see the education cost share, and that's funding that goes to the town to offset the support that the town gives to education. So that's all state revenue, and that's all in the town's budget, except for the special ed excess cost, which goes right through. Revenue from programs. This is additional revenue that comes in based on the number of students or type of students that come to our district. As you can see again, there is one line that is in italics, and that is the Next Step Special Education Tuition Program. And we bring in $59,000 this year. We have several students from another town. I do know another student from that same town that will be joining us next year. And that is also passed through when that was set up several years ago. That was set up to pass through to offset the cost of that particular program. The other 3 items, agricultural ed tuition, the ag ed special ed tuition, and the special ed tuition are all funding that comes in that goes directly to the town. So that was a question a board member had for us. So I wanted to point that out for you. Okay. The next on Mr. Porcaro's list is the Memorial Scholarship Fund. We had a scholarship fund many years ago, and it has about $62,000 in it. And the board is actually the body that creates a board of trustees that governs that scholarship fund. This was a loan scholarship fund, and so students were supposed to pay back the loans. And they were given loans to go to school and pay them back. And apparently in the early 90s, the Board of Trustees was very frustrated because they couldn't track students down, they weren't getting paid back, and so they just stopped doing everything. So there is an account with $62,000 in it. So we're letting the board know that in the early fall, we're going to be asking you, and we've put the bylaws in here for that committee, we're going to be asking you to name trustees again, a board of trustees, and to have that, excuse me, that board determine with the input of the family what would be an appropriate use for that funding.
Do we start up that again, or it can't lie dormant forever? Employee benefits, we are going out to bid on the broker, health insurance broker, so that is in process. We have been informed by our insurer that there will be no medical loss ratio to the state of Connecticut, so there'll be no funding there. That was funding, if you recall, that I think it was about $92,000 we received a couple of years ago. And then unclaimed property, you know, that big list they put in the Hartford Courant and JI about people who have savings accounts they've forgotten about that the state has taken over. We have approximately $720 that was unclaimed, and so that will be returned. We're putting in the claim for those. And that is the finance report from Mr. Picaro. And I will make his apologies, the missing person in Ellington. He was out all night with that search, and so he has not slept since yesterday. So I told him to go home.
Mr. Percy.
Dr. Conway, going back to Exhibit E, the Board of Ed revenue to the general fund, the Next Step Special Education Tuition, that school was created how many years ago? Roughly?
It was before my time, so I would imagine it was 4 or 5 years.
And that's, so the board created a school,
That's right.
and we get the tuition from that school.
That
Which
is
is
correct.
exactly what we're looking to do with the Special Ed Alternative Learning School. So we already have a model.
Yes.
Okay. So that could be used in the discussion with the town.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Seeing Ms. Golich.
The excess cost student-based supplement, the $128,580, there's been no motion to return that to the Board of Education from the town?
We have not had a conversation about that at this point, and so that's why we're looking at the other sources of revenue, the Medicare, Medicaid money, and the, excuse me, and the prescription drug account.
Now, this is for 2012 and 2013, I assume, not 2103.
Wow.
Wow, that's a long-term loan.
Thank you.
Would it be, remind me, David, the $2 million, the space
reduction.
Space reduction.
Yeah, the standards.
That will be returned to the town, not the Board of Education, in 2013-14?
That it's debt reduction, right? The board, the town already owes that money, so it's a hole that's not as deep as it was.
But not this fiscal year, the next fiscal year?
I honestly don't know when it would be reimbursed.
Whenever the
Whenever
legislation takes effect, it would be
So it could be July
appropriated.
1. July 1 is the new biennial.
But again, that's to offset the bonding cost that was supposed to, it was anticipated, and the state was going to shortchange us on it that we pursued. So it has already been accounted for.
With the biennial budget, would it be the next fiscal year?
It should be July
Should be.
1.
Thank you.
Mr. Nicholson.
One issue I have with these, you call it revenue from programs, it gives a total amount that comes in, but what you're not seeing, what I'm not seeing is the actual cost of the program. You know, we're saying it's revenue, but what's the cost to operate that program versus what we're bringing in? That would be a more useful number than the total number, because if you just throw out numbers, you're saying you're getting $319,000 for the ag ed tuition. Well, that's great if it's costing us $200,000 to run it. If it's costing us $400,000 to run it, then we're losing money on it. So I think to get a better handle on this, we need to see the cost versus what we're calling revenue.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, we'll move on to item 7.8A. which is the resolution for authorization for the superintendent's signature on a grant award. Dr. Conway?
Thank you, Mr. Hull. We were quite delighted to receive a letter on Friday indicating that we were one of 9 districts to receive the Building Capacity for Student Attendance program. I want to credit Mr. Jerry Griffin for doing this. He has received this award every year for the past 4 or 5 or 6 years, and we're very, very delighted to receive that. You approved the grant. This is one of those things from Office of Policy and Management that in order for us to accept the grant, you need to authorize that I can sign for the grant, and so there is an authorized signature. So there is a motion.
Ms. Fisher?
I move that the Vernon Board of Education approve the certified resolution indicating that the superintendent is authorized to accept and sign a grant award for $10,000 under the school attendance program.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? Mr. Nicholson? I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? Ms. Summer?
Can I ask a question about the school attendance program? What is the grant used for, Dr. Conway?
I don't recall the details of this. You approved it several months ago. What we've used it for in the past are, we've had additional guidance people at the high school that have focused specifically on school attendance. And Mrs. Marassa, do you remember what is that in this one? They had a different twist to this one.
The target audience is still the high school and supporting students in the transition from 8th grade to 9th grade. They're targeting a population to provide some additional programming for students to build more connections to school.
But our attendance numbers are still not where they need to be.
That's correct.
Any other questions or dialogue? Seeing none, I'm going to call the motion to a vote by a show of hands. All in favor? And that's unanimous. Item 7.9 is the approval of the Nurse Association contract, and I anticipate we'll be talking about the details of this in executive session. Item 7.10 is also non-affiliated staff contracts that we'll be talking about in the executive session. I do anticipate that we'll probably take action after we come out of the executive session.
I can make a motion to go into executive session to discuss 7.9 and 7.1, inviting the superintendent.
I have a motion and a second to enter executive session to discuss items 7.9 and 7.10. Is there a second? Ms. Fisher? A motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? And invite the super, yes. You said what you said? You said inviting the superintendent. Any discussion? Seeing none, by a show of hands, all in favor? That's unanimous. Yeah. In executive session, as soon as we are able to.
You can come anytime you want, Ms. Hipperson.
I can let myself in.
Welcome, you can, absolutely.
You can let yourself in.
Yes.
Did you break the camera, Dave?
Yes, I did. This is
That's what I thought.
3 hours old.
Where's your little cookie thing?
Well, I didn't, it's in the car. It should be live.
How are you getting in here in the first place?
Because I couldn't, that's the point, so I got to do it.
So the door was the other door.
Executive session, what is the?
We are out of executive session at 10:08,
Thank you.
and we are at 10:08.
Oh, we wish.
Mr. Percy.
I'd like to make a motion that the Vernon Board of Education approve the contract with the Nurses Association as proposed.
And do I have a second on that? Mr. Nicholson? I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'm going to call for a vote by show of hands, all in favor? And that's unanimous. Item 7.9, Ms. Fisher? Oh, sorry, 7.10.
Move that the Vernon Board of Education approve the employment contracts of the non-affiliated employees for the 2013-14 school year as discussed.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second? Mr. Percy?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'm going to call for a vote by show of hands. All in favor? And all opposed? I show one opposed. And let's see. We don't have any calendar updates. And the press is going home for the evening. I think we can entertain one final motion and be happy. Ms. Bush.
Motion to adjourn.
And is there a second? Mr. Percy?
Second.
A motion and a second, non-debatable motion, all in favor? We are adjourned. Thank you. And it's